creator of the MELT method, and my mission is to help people live a more active, healthy, pain-free life. I've been in the fitness industry for my whole life, and in the early 80s I was doing aerobic classes, and by the time I got to 16, my very first legitimate job was as an aerobic instructor. In my early 20s, I was doing a master's at NYU. I had the privilege of working with elite athletes and had this great knack of getting these high-performance athletes back out on the field after they had gotten injured. So from fitness, as I got into doing manual therapy, I opened up my private practice in New York City, and I started to treat people using multiple modalities, from heavy compression techniques to these light touch therapeutic techniques. And the one common thread of all of the therapies was connective tissue. So for years I had been trying to figure out more about connective tissue and what really this system was. When I first started looking at fascia in 1998 on the internet, there were 150 sites. Today there are 55 million sites citing fascia or connective tissue. I would say one of the greatest privileges that I have had over the past 2 decades is collaborating and getting to know and work with some of the top researchers, scientists, and truly the pioneers of neurofascial science and research. In 2006, we started to establish the Fascia Research Society, and the Fascia Research Society at Harvard was certainly the catalyst for the education of fascial research being far more exposed to the general public. And the MELT method has really been the vehicle to assist this science to get out to the general population so that people treat this very system that science now can validate as being a resource of stability, control, and connection. I just think that we're just at the beginning of what we're going to find out about the power of connective tissue. The way that the MELT method started was in my private practice. I started developing this at-home self-treatment technique to empower my clients to do things outside of the office to continue their healing. Today there are over 1,000 MELT instructors worldwide helping people get out and stay out of chronic pain. We have helped hundreds of thousands of people achieve a more pain-free, active lifestyle, and we are just at the beginning. And so health, fitness, and wellness has just always been a part of my whole life.
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the class. I'm Sue Hitzmann. I'm the creator of the Melt Method. I'm here in Florida, super excited to share with you this self-care method and to see if you can make some changes right in the session with me today. A couple of quick questions because we've got so many people who registered. I know a lot of people will watch the recording, but those of you guys who are on the call, just because, you know, I don't know who you guys are or where you are in your fitness levels and things. Quick curiosity is, how many of you have never melted before? You've never done it. I'm going to have my friends here post a poll for you. If you're melting every day, you've done melt, but now you're not, or no, but you want to start, or you join the event to check out what it is. So one of those, I'll give you guys a second to incorporate your answers and see how many of you guys have actually melted before. So this is definitely going to be kind of a new thing. I see some of you guys are brand new to it. Looks like yeah, maybe about 20% of you, but some of you guys are melting quite a bit. So wonderful. So I mean, it's always great when we have avid melters. Second question for you guys, if you would, after we've gotten these questions, is how many of you actually have the melt products? Because the things I want to use today, and if you don't, I want to know this ahead of time, is the melt soft body roller. So if you've never used the melt roller, it's different than a foam roller. Foam rollers are used for self-myofascial techniques where you're creating heavy compression force to restore blood flow to muscle. We're going to be working more on the autonomic nervous system, down regulating the stress regulator, boosting your body's natural repair, and rehydrating the connective tissue system, which is that global system of the body. So just curious how many of you guys have it, how many of you don't. Okay, so so most of you guys have it, which is great. But now if you don't have the roller, because it looks like some of you don't, just so that you know, okay, we have two types of rollers. We have a full roller and we also have a half roller. So if you had scoliosis or spinal stenosis, any type of spinal disorder, sometimes beginning the rebalance sequence on a flat surface will help you out. So this is an option. Now, if you don't have the melt products, what I would tell you to do, I'm just giving you some examples here, is you could roll up a beach towel and get it to be about three feet long. That's how long it is. So you'd have to be able to lie your head to your tail on it. So if you're tall, you might even want to get two of these, or better yet, if you have some yoga mats, you can do the rebalance sequence. You'll just line them up like this, and you guys will be lying the length of the roller. It'll be longer than what you need. But then I also want to do a little bit of low back decompress and maybe even a neck release sequence. So you can just use one of your yoga mats. So this is what you'd want. You want a soft tool. We don't use hard foam rollers in the methodology. Melt isn't a foam rolling technique, unbeknownst to most people. So that's that. And then the other thing we're going to be using is the large soft ball. You can see how nice and soft and squishy that is. The large soft ball from the hand and foot kit. And this is a mini kit. It has one of each ball and a bunion band. For those of you guys who have that bad issue of your big toe mound suddenly diverting itself and becoming friends with your middle toes, this is the one that we're going to be using. I want to do a hand treatment, and maybe if we have time, maybe a quick foot treatment. It will just depend. And then my last question to you guys is, how many of you actually subscribe to the streaming platform called Melt on Demand? How many of you guys are using that? Because every single week I put out a new video in the categories of pain, performance, and lifestyle. And we do collections. And one thing that you'll learn is there's no one melt map or one treatment for a disorder or a disease or a dysfunction or a pain problem or even an athletic program. It's a collection of different sequences, treatments, and self-care routines that you can do from day to day. And that's really what will help you guys out. So that being said, yeah, it looks like a lot of you guys are kind of 50-50. So a lot of you guys have heard of it, but never tried it. To me, I just think this is such a great godsend to have a self-care program that you can do daily. And I always say melt, it's a simple self-care technique to help you get out and stay out of chronic pain, avoid some of the negative effects that you associate with aging and active living. And one of the biggest, culprits for people in breaking down their stability over time is joint issues, neck pain, low back pain, a joint problem, where it just decreases your performance. And all of this is connective tissue related. I always say, although 100% of the time your brain's what's producing your sense of pain, if pain is chronic, you have an issue in your connective tissue called fascia. And this is our job, is to restore the supportive qualities of our connective tissue system and alter the nervous system to go back into better balance and regulation to help realign our bodies so that our joints are more stable and aligned. It'll definitely help you guys out. And that being said, I know a lot of you guys said that you were somewhat new to melt. I know a lot of you guys are melters, but I'm going to bring to the screen my new friend who I met yesterday. His name is Josh. So I'm going to go ahead and spotlight you, Josh. How are you?
I'm doing great.
I say thank you so much for doing this with us. I talked to Josh. He just got the products yesterday. You're in this fantastic gym, so clearly you're into fitness. Yes.
I yes.
And you've never done melt before.
Nope.
No. So we're gonna see if we can help you out. No. You
Yeah.
talked yesterday. You said that one of the things that's going on with you is neck pain, that you tend to deal with neck pain. How have you
Yep.
used any type of self-care or therapies to help you?
Yeah.
What have you tried?
I've done about everything. I saw a chiropractor for a year. I got x-rays on it. I do heat, ice. I bought 3 different beds now. I've spent thousands of dollars on pillows. I have 4 different massagers that I try to use. And I do a foam roller on occasion, strength training. I've tried about everything you can imagine.
Yeah, well, that sounds like, how's that going for you? Do you still have neck issues?
Oh, it's just, yeah. Some days it feels okay. Some days it's worse.
And I think that's something for everybody to hear, because that is one of the things that we call chronic pain, right? Is a pain that's either constant and progressively getting worse, or it's a pain that seems to come and go, but each time it comes back, it kind of stays a little longer and maybe gets a little bit more acute.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you also said that you have a new baby. And another
Yeah, well,
one
I
on
have
the
a
way,
2-year-old.
maybe?
I have a 2.5-year-old who's no longer a little baby, and picking him up has become a major stressor in my life. And then I have another baby that's due in January.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So you have plenty of free time to be going to chiropractors and PTs, of course.
Exactly.
And that's one of the things we're going to talk about, right? Is if you want to get out and stay out of chronic pain, daily self-care is really what we want to talk about, right? Is that self-care should be a daily regimen, and your self-care and your restorative programs don't have to be as hard and outgoing as your training days. I think that that's the thing with foam rolling, and using those Theraguns and most of the therapies is it's very forceful. It's very compressive. And what we're going to do is kind of quiet the stress reflex, see if we can identify some of the common imbalances, because I'm sure a lot of you guys, if we did a poll, how many of you guys have neck or low back pain? It's kind of a ridiculous question. It's like practically everybody on the planet seems to have some nagging ache or pain in their spine. And what that's showing is signs of neurocore inefficiency. So the neurological stabilization mechanisms that keep our spine in good alignment and good mobility tend to break down as we age. That common flex posture, looking at a computer screen. We're going to see if we can help Josh out. So maybe our theme here will be how to restore the control of your autopilot's connection to your center of gravity and restore some fluid flow to the neck and low back. Let's make that our map today. And so because we're going to kind of focus mostly on the rollers today, if we have time, I'd like to do a hand treatment for you guys. And even if you don't have the products, again, you could roll up a towel. And even when we do the hand treatment, if you don't have the balls, I'll just teach you how to do it with your own hands. Easy enough. Okay. So one of the methods of melt, if you guys are new to melt, there's 4 R's of melt: reconnect, rebalance, rehydrate, and release. The reconnect techniques are assessment techniques. These are the non-negotiables of melt, just like a therapist. When you first begin, you're going to assess your body for accumulative tension and stress, veer your mind away from your pain problems, and start to identify where these common imbalances are living in your body, which are neurofascial imbalances, not musculoskeletal, neurofascial. So I'm going to kind of point out what those feel like. We're going to do the rebalance sequence straight up from the Melt Method book. And it's about an 8-minute sequence. And we're just going to see if we can restore some of the common balance back to the pelvis. Then we're going to do a little technique for the neck and low back. See if we can just decompress our neck and do a little bit of low back decompress. See if we can transform the way that we feel in the body. And then we'll do a little hand treatment and see if we can also bring some fluid flow up our arms and into our body. Does that sound fair? Easy enough, yeah? So if you've got the rollers and such, and again, if you don't have the roller, you guys can go ahead and use a towel, a rolled up towel, or a couple of yoga mats. And one of the things I want to do, and we're going to do a couple of assessments, because one of the things a lot of us have is stuck stress living in our arm lines that could be causing neck tension. So before we even lie flat on the floor, I'm going to have you guys just sit up nice and tall. And I'm even going to kind of angle myself sideways. I just want you to try to bring your elbows and your palms together and then bring your arms down. And just notice as you bring your arms into that kind of prayer pose, do you feel tension in your back as you do it? Just kind of notice how those arms come together and any tightness between the shoulder blades. Then hang out here for a second with me. Take a breath into your back. Try to remember what it feels to breathe into your back. Move your wrists around. So this is a movement assessment. I'm going to do some body sense assessments. This is a movement assessment. Notice if there's any tightness or clicking in your wrists, and then drop your hands back and notice the angle of your hands. Ideally, your hands make a letter T. If you're making a V, a W, or your fingers kind of coil back, that's really showing some of the restriction in the connective tissue system that could be limiting the mobility and stability of your neck. So Josh, I kind of see when you drop your fingers back, yeah, you have a little bit of that coil. So fair enough, that's some stuck stress. So make a little note of that. And we're going to do another assessment. This one's called the rest assess. And in the rest assess, I'm going to use some melt language for you guys to see if you guys can identify some stuck stress. So all you need to do is go ahead and lie down on your back with your palms faced up and your arms and legs extended. Okay. Now, once you're in this position, all I want you to do is just give yourself permission to go into your body and begin to sense what you feel. So first, just consciously take over the act of breathing. Breathe in, notice how your body expands, the diaphragm contracts. And then as we exhale, noticing how your body comes back to the midline, it just relaxes and softens. And just do that a few times, kind of noticing again, the expansion on the inhale and the release on the exhale. Now, to do a body scan, you're going to learn how to use body sense. So what I'm going to invite you guys not to do is fidget, adjust, or look up at the screen. Just close your eyes, kind of tune into what we're going to define as masses and spaces using your body sense. So instead of touch, movement, or vision, just notice the areas of your body touching the ground. Those are what I'm going to define as masses. And I also want you to notice the areas of your body off the floor, and we're going to define those as spaces. So in your upper body, let's start with your head, arms, and your torso position. If you've got a lot of stuck stress in your connective tissue, causing some imbalances in the upper body, you might notice that your head, instead of resting right behind the bridge of your nose, you might notice that your head's a little tipped off to one side, or you're actually noticing tension in the neck to lie still. In your arms, notice from the back of your hands up to your shoulders, ideally your arms are evenly weighted on the ground. Take a note if one arm feels like it has more weight than the other. And in your torso, what I really want you to key into is, where do you feel the most back weight? If it feels like it's all the way up on the upper 1/3 of your back where your shoulder blades are, you might even feel like the shoulder blades are a little dug into the floor. Those are signs of accumulative stress. Ideally, where we define the mid-rib wall below the shoulder blades, ideally that's the heaviest region of the torso. Notice if the shoulder blades feel more weighted than the rib wall. So Josh, from what I just described, are you noticing any of those imbalances?
I certainly have the shoulders feel heavier.
Okay, so
like
make
I'm a little bit more weighted to my right side.
Fair enough. So make a note of that one. So that's a little stuck stress up there. So if you're not sure what you feel, and Josh, do this for me also, is just slowly turn your head left and right. And what you want to notice in movement in your neck is if you have limited range, pain, or you feel like your shoulders follow your head turn. So if any of you guys are feeling limited range or pain or your shoulders moving, again, that's another way to identify that accumulative stress. So Josh, you have any issues in that turn?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I can see it. So just be mindful of that. Okay, so then bring your head back to center. Second thing we want to notice is accumulative stress in the diaphragm. So I'm going to let everybody cheat on this one. I'm going to let you stick one finger in your belly button and use that as your landmark. Instead of touching your low back, just notice that the arch of your back feels more tense and lifted above the belly button rather than below. So if you're feeling a high tensional lift, the low back curve goes well beyond the belly button. that's a big one that will cause both neck and low back pain. So notice what you feel. What do you got on there, Josh? You got any stuck stress in your diaphragm?
I feel like I'm better there.
Okay, so just remember what it feels like, and then take your finger away, no more touching. All right. So now let's also notice the lower body, arms back on the ground. Notice your pelvis, the back of your thighs, the back of your calves, and your heels. Those are your masses. If you have stuck stress living in the neural core that's altering pelvic stability, you'll feel your tailbone is more pronounced to the ground than two evenly weighted butt cheeks. You might notice that the back of your thigh masses feel more like spaces actually lifted off the ground. You might not feel the weight of them at all on one or both sides. Your calf mass might be unevenly weighted. And your feet, instead of feeling like a nice natural turnout, like letter V, northeast, northwest, your feet will feel more like they're pointed out to the sides of the room or pointed away from your ankles. So out of those things I just mentioned, Josh, you feel like you got any of those?
Major space in my thighs.
Okay, so remember that. So listen, so far it seems to me that Josh has found 2 of the 4 most common imbalances. So listen, I'm going to point out the 4 most common imbalances. These are the ones that destabilize your core the most. So key into this, guys. If you feel like most or all of your back weight's on your shoulder blades, your mid back has a high tensional lift to it, your tailbone is feeling a little more pronounced to the ground than your butt cheeks, or the back of your thigh masses feel off the ground. If you're feeling 1, 2, 3, or all 4, those are the ones we want to try to eliminate, especially if you have neck or low back pain. Last thing to notice, divide yourself into a left and a right half, just ear to heel, left to right. You guys are going to hear me refer to your autopilot, the parts of your body that support, protect, and stabilize you. If your autopilot is having interference from connective tissue issues, you'll feel literally like one entire side of your body is more weighted, or one leg will feel longer than the other. So just see if you feel that offsetness from left to right. Josh, how's your autopilot doing?
It's pretty out of whack.
A little out of whack. Okay, so remember that. So now just go ahead and take a breath in. When you're ready, go ahead and roll yourself on your side. Come on up to sitting. And we're going to start with one of my favorite sequences. And this is an excellent one to do before bedtime. It's called the rebalance sequence. So what you're going to do is take your roller. And if you have the towels, you can go ahead and do it the same way. You're going to go ahead and squash the end of the roller with your butt cheek, so that when you come back, your head, the back of your head, is going to land on top of the roller. So just to check that, put your hand to the top of your head and just make sure that your head's fully on the roller, Josh, for me. And if it isn't, just kind of inchworm yourself down a bit. Yeah, you look pretty good. And then take a look at your feet. You don't want your heels way back like this, Josh. Take a quick look at me. I want you to walk your feet out so that you've got a nice natural stance, about hip width apart, not too wide. So walk those feet back just a little bit more so that they're just on your rug. I think is probably going to be good for you. Let your heels come on onto your rug. There you go. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so now hands are going to come on down to the ground. First melt move we do when we're on the roller is called gentle rocking. All you need to do is begin to, again, focus on breathing in and breathing out. Just think about your breath and allow your masses, your head, your ribs, and your pelvis to just gently tip and rock over to the left and catch yourself, and then tip over to the right and catch yourself. Now, get this idea. If I tied a string from the tip of your nose to your sternum, to your belly button, to your pubic bone, all of your masses are simultaneously just rocking and moving. So you're not rubbing your spine up against the roller, you're just allowing your body to naturally ebb and flow. And of the 4 R's, this is called a reconnect technique. It's a way to help your autopilot reconnect to your center of gravity. And all you do is just rock and breathe for about 30 seconds just to help your nervous system also manage the pressure along the spine on the roller. Then you come back to a center point. Second melt move is called the tuck and the tilt. What I like to do is put my hand like a triangle, like a pizza pie. And I take that pizza pie and I rest it on my lower abdomen. So my fingertips are on my pubic bone. The heels of my hands are on my hip bones. And there's 2 moves we're going to do. The first one is called the tuck. You're going to allow your pubic bone to curl towards your nose. Your low back is going to flatten toward the roller. That's called a tuck, elongating the low back. And then if you take your fingertips onto your pubic bone and you push your pubic bone away from your belly button, that should increase the low back curve somewhat and allow your sacrum or your tailbone to land to the top of the roller. Okay, so those are the 2 moves. So we're going to try to tuck the pelvis, allowing the pubic bone to curl towards our nose. And then we're going to tilt the pelvis, allowing the back of the sacrum to land back to the top of the roller. Now check this out. When we tuck, pause there for a second in your tuck and notice if you're pushing into your feet, squeezing your butt cheeks, or lifting your hips to hold the pose. And if that's what you're doing, cut it out. Don't do it that way. Try to maintain your tuck and just let the feet be light. Notice how that's going to engage a little bit of your abdomen. And then as you untuck, and you go to the tilt, notice if your rib cage comes with your pelvis. And if that's what's happening, take your hands, put them on the rib cage, and continue about 5 to 10 times to tuck your pelvis and tilt your pelvis. And just keep going with that motion. This is what we call differentiated motion. So instead of thinking isolation, what I want you to do is draw your attention to what's not moving, right? Instead of focusing on your tuck and tilt, notice that your ribs are not coming with you and your feet are not getting heavier or lighter as you go. Your legs are relaxed. It's only a movement of the pelvis. And this is another reconnect technique. Again, another way to help the autopilot, those parts of our body that stabilize us by way of this neural core, to regain its connection to the center of gravity in your pelvis. So one more time, we're going to tuck. Remember that position because we're going to use that later. Sometimes I call that a sad dog pose. And then tilting, sometimes I call the Playboy bunny pose or the happy bunny pose, like you're trying to make your butt look more lifted in your jeans. We'll need it for the low back release sequence. So just one more time, tucking, sad dogs, and then tilting, Playboy bunnies, happy bunnies. Okay. Now find somewhere in the middle of those two positions. That's your neutral home base. Next technique is a rebalancing technique. We're going to go after the diaphragmatic motion. Put one hand on your chest, one hand on your belly. And all I want you to do is take 3 slightly then slower than normal inhalations. Go ahead and slowly breathe in and see if you can sense an expansion from a midline up to both hands and into your back body. So you're breathing depth into your torso and then letting your breath come out. So when you inhale, you're breathing equally into both hands. So slow down your breath until you feel your chest and your belly expand from the inhale. And you also feel your chest and your belly relax on the exhale. And again, as we inhale, we're breathing into the back and front body. So we're expanding the body in 2 dimensions. And then exhaling. Okay, so now second technique, you're going to put your hands on the sides of your ribs. And in the same fashion, this time we're going to breathe with into the torso. So we're going to take 3 slightly then slower than normal inhalations, breathing with, feeling that breath expand into the armpits, exhaling, feeling and following the relaxation. Again, inhaling with, I kind of like thinking of breathing from my spine into my ribs, allowing my shoulders to get wide on the breath, exhaling and coming back. And one more time, breathing with and exhaling. Okay, last direction is length. You're going to put one hand on your collarbones, one hand down onto your pubic bone. And this time I want you to take a breath that goes all the way due north up to your collarbones and all the way due south in between your pelvic bones. So I really want you to feel the length of the breath. Try to breathe right into your pelvic floor, all the way to the collarbones. And then again, as you exhale, let it soften. Again, lengthening that breath through your body. Notice if your body subtly lifts or tips on the roller. Don't stop that from happening. That's part of that regulation that's occurring by changing the oscillation of the diaphragm, going through that final breath. And then again, letting that natural exhale come out. Okay, so one last technique called the 3D breath. Put both hands on your belly. This time, just take a nice 6-sided breath into the whole body. Feel your whole body expand. And then again, as you exhale, feel how your whole body retracts back inward. And this time what we're going to do 3 times is force and exhale. We're going to take a 6-sided breath in, and we're going to slow down our breath by making an SH sound. Go shh. And I want you to keep that SH going until there's no breath left. And when you get to the end of the exhale, don't inhale. Just hold that engagement. Feel that inward hugging, like you're hugging a baby in your belly. And then inhale, let it go. Second breath you can try as an S sound, like a deflating tire, a S. Again, really feeling and following that breath until there's nothing left in your lungs, feeling that hugging action, really gaining a sense of that inward squeezing, feel it from all 6 sides. And then inhale, let it all go. And this time try an HA sound. And really get a sense of that inward gathering. Now, whichever sound kind of draws your attention to that inward squeezing, try that a couple more times. So if you breathe in and you make the shh, again, it's an inward contraction. You're feeling this, not a front back, not like a rectus when you're doing a sit-up, but more of a squeezing like a corset around your torso. Try it one more time, taking a nice expansive breath in. And then either an SH, SE, or HA sound. Nice firm exhale, really firm against the teeth, feeling how that naturally contracts the abdomen when the diaphragm releases. Josh, do you get a sense of that contraction that I'm asking you for?
No.
Okay, so now this time, take a 6-sided breath in, and on your exhale, don't make any sound. Let your natural exhale come out of the body. But as it does with your conscious mind, see if you can actually create that engagement without the forced exhale. Feel yourself hug your organs. Even your pelvic floor kind of gets a squeeze. Inhale, feel your body, let it all go. And then again, let your natural exhale initiate the breath and feel and follow that engagement. Now, remember what that feels like, because later we'll try to find our core again, but let's do a lengthening technique. Let's take our hands back down to the ground, and just to hydrate the collarbones up to the neck, I want you to crawl your arms away from your shoulders. Let the collarbones be wide. Plant your hands down, press your palms into the floor. Let your nose stay tipped up. Take a breath in, and on an exhale, find your core, and then slowly turn your head very, very subtly to the right as you energize your left arm away from that right head turn. And what I'm looking for here, everybody, including Josh here, is this tensional pull down your arm, not in your neck. You should feel it go down the arm. It'll feel different than a muscle stretch, kind of a fuzzy, broad, long tension to the arm. Can you get a sense of it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, and then take another breath in. Notice if when you breathe in, that expands the tension a little bit more. And then as you exhale, bring your head back to center. And let's try it on the other side one time. So really planting your right hand down, keep your nose tipped up, take a breath in, and on an exhale, slowly turn your head subtly to the left. Take a big breath in, noticing for that fascial pull. Kind of feels like a long, broad tension all the way down into the fingertips, all the way up even into your jaw if you can. Really feel that connection. And then again, take a nice breath in and out. And then bring your head back to center. Okay, one time, just try to do a little bit of that gentle rocking for me, everybody, just to kind of see how you move. You might actually move a little more freely in your gentle rock. And then when you're ready, come back to a center point, straighten out one of your legs, and really slowly, we're just gonna slide our pelvis, ribs, and then our head off the roller. And then just go ahead and lie back onto your back, palms up, arms and legs extended. Okay, so take a breath in now and go back in and use your body sense. Now, that's a rebalance sequence. That's a way to help your autopilot reacquire connection to the center of gravity. So if you guys have managed to find some change, you might notice that your head, arms, and torso are a little bit more relaxed to the ground. Maybe the arch of the back feels less tense. Maybe the butt cheeks or even the back of thigh masses may have settled to the floor. But the most important thing on this one is if you divide yourself into the left and right half, you might feel more balance from left to right. And if you turn your head left and right, go ahead and try that one, Josh. Notice if you freed up range, decreased any pain, or if your shoulders are more relaxed to turn your head. So gain a sense of the changes that you think you feel. And Josh, what kind of changes did you make?
My shoulders definitely more relaxed.
Okay. And then from left to right, how do you feel left, right? Any changes there?
A little bit.
Okay, so just remember what you feel, guys. And again, everyone else, when you're ready, go ahead and roll on your side and come on up to sitting. And let's just have a quick conversation before we add a little bit of hydration techniques. So those are neurological techniques. Those are ways, again, to help down-regulate any stress responses in the body. So I'd be curious with you guys, if you noticed any changes, what changes did you make? And remember, we didn't do very much, right? We did some breathing sounds, we did some rocking. And as you start to learn those techniques, they just start to add a little bit of nuance to the protocol. How do you feel though in general? Easy enough?
Yeah.
Not so hard? Yeah. Okay, so let's do a little bit for the lower and upper body. Let's try a little bit of calf gliding and shearing. So if you have only a towel, I would just say watch this one, sit this one out and learn this. So let me show you a quick demonstration. For a lot of people when they're doing foam rolling, what do? They get a roller under their bodies and they iron themselves like a shirt. We're not going to do that. Instead, what we're going to do is take our calves on the roller, and I'm going to demonstrate this, and you can do this with me, Josh. We're going to sit up for a second. You could even lean back. If you want to do this one, you don't need to be upright because really you would be lying flat on your back to do this technique. But if this bothers your shoulders, feel free to be upright. It doesn't matter one way or other. But what I want you to do is learn how to glide. So let's put both calves on the roller for a second and very subtly bend your knees. Pause for a second. What I want you to feel is that you are now compressing the curved side of the roller, and whatever that pressure is when you straighten your legs back out, I want you to keep the pressure constant on the top of the roller. So you're going to bend your knees, feel pressure on the curved side, And then as you straighten your legs, feel the same pressure. So this is called gliding. Gliding is a preparatory technique. It's a way to prepare connective tissue for the next technique called shearing. And it's also a way to explore our tissue for areas of restriction. So let's just go ahead and take an exploration technique. Let's go ahead and cross one ankle over the other. And let's continue to do our gliding. And what I want you to kind of feel is that you're not really rolling the roller up and down your calf. You're more gliding. You're kind of carving out a groove. And once you get the glide going, turn your calf a little inward and glide there. And you might feel like you have a wad of gummy bears living in your calf. So just notice it. And then turn your calf outward. And just notice if you have any tender spots or lumpy areas, anything that feels sensitive. If you feel one of those sensitive spots, that's what we call a barrier. What you want to do is, instead of keep rolling over it, kind of find the top, inside, outside, or bottom of it. Find a spot, get smaller and smaller, meet that barrier, and here's shearing. You can either flex and point your ankle. That's called an indirect shear, contracting muscles against an area of compressive interface. Or you could keep your ankle completely relaxed and you could roll your body part over the roller. Or if you feel like you're going over a speed bump, use your top leg to drag the calf left, right, pin the skin, and create a twisting action. Yeah? And then you just pause there and wait. And let's just try it on the other side so that you get the hang of this. So crossing the ankle over, bending and straightening the knee. A secret to good calf gliding is keep your ankle relaxed. The more relaxed you stay when you do compression, the bigger the fluid exchange will be. So keep it in one small local area. And again, explore the tissue, turning your calf a little outward, a little inward, noticing for any areas that feel tender. Once you find one of those tender spots, don't keep rolling over it, kind of do a sneak attack to it, just nuzzle up against it, stop moving, and then shear the tissue. So again, if I pin the skin and I contract a muscle against an area of compression, that's going to create a shear effect between muscles to skin. If you keep your ankle completely relaxed and you roll your body part over the roller, that's shearing, or pin the skin and twist it across. Yeah. So just as you guys listening, just remember, if the roller's moving, you're gliding. If the roller stays still and you move a body part over the roller, that's a shear. You get the idea of it? Fair enough. Okay, so let's do a little back thigh, because oddly enough, a lot of people who have neck pain, a lot of the sneaky culprits are in the lower body, especially if you sit for long periods of time. So what I like to do on this one, we're going to kind of zhuzh this one up, is you grab the ends of your roller like a swing. You kind of tuck it underneath the bottom of your thighs, at the ends of your thighs, and then just drop your legs down. Keep your legs completely relaxed and just open and close your legs. That's all you need to do. So what I want you to gain a sense of is this would be considered shearing, right? Because I'm not moving the roller's staying still, and I'm moving a body part. And again, you guys who now have a towel, you could probably do some of this with your towel or your yoga mat, definitely something to try. So I could also do this where I can bend one knee. And again, I can leave the flesh behind on the roller and create a twisting action. And again, this is just to give you guys some taste of some of the techniques of the method. Thank you, Baron. Twisting. And then if you have trouble moving your leg, any of you guys have a hip replacement or anything, you could just leave your leg relaxed and just do the little rolling. Also, I could just roll my leg in and out. And the secret of doing shearing is, once you do a shear force, just let your leg weight compress. Think of it like working fluid into a sponge and then compressing it for a moment. So when you let it go, you get the fill effect. Let's try it on the other side. It's the same thing, bending the knee, straightening the opposite leg, and doing the twisting action. So this is an area of the body. It's called the superficial back line of fascia, and it's a stabilizing aspect of the body. So when the back line becomes cellularly dehydrated, it tends to give us low back and cervical pain. And this is an area that you can juice up very quickly. Okay, just like compression sitting at your desk for long periods of time, that's what dehydrates the tissue. Doing things like this for short periods of time in this pinning and twisting action, that's what's going to rehydrate that tissue. And we're not going to do any rinsing techniques today on the body. But again, if you guys want, just go ahead and shimmy your legs. Instead of doing a rinsing technique, we're going to do some lengthening techniques, again, to try to cause some tensional release to the spine. So I want you guys to go ahead and bend your knees. Find your core. Remember, you guys could make that SH, SE, or HA sound to just make sure you've got your core engaged. And just nice and gently bridge your hips up and bring the roller underneath the back of your pelvis. Now, that doesn't mean you're low back. And just to check this, if you put your hands on your hip bones like you got a New York City attitude, you should not find the roller. It should be free from the roller. Another way you know you've got the roller in the right place is if you bring your knees up and you draw your knees into your chest. The roller shouldn't feel like it's going to fly out from underneath you. In fact, it should almost feel like that gets more to the top of your pelvis so that it's nice and snug, okay? And just for today, let's just go ahead and just rock our knees up just a touch left to right. So if I were on a face of a clock, I'd be going from 12 o'clock to 11 o'clock when I tip to the left, or to just 1 o'clock. So it's not 2 and 10, just a slight angle. That's the SI joint. And I just want to make sure if anybody has tenderness in their SI joint, this is something to make a note of. These are things that we like to work on, especially for those of us who are athletic. And we'll talk to Josh a little bit more about his athletic routine later. Okay, so let's do a shear technique at the SI joint. I want you to tip your knees a little to the right, and really slowly, you're just going to march your knees forward and back a little bit. So this is just an indirect and direct shear for the sacroiliac joint. So if I move my legs slowly marching back and forth, letting those knees stay bent the whole time, yep, it's just going to create the compression to the SI joint through hydration. And then remember, anytime you do something that's going to shear, you just wait here for a moment. And then let's tip over to the other side, and let's do the same thing, a little marching forward and back. At the beginning of our session, we did a move called tucking and tilting. I referred to sad dogs and happy bunnies. That's going to make a difference in a minute. Let's do this one more time. And then same thing, we're going to wait here for a second. Okay, bring your legs back to the center, set both feet down to the ground, and let's just practice what we call a modified tuck and tilt, okay? So what I want you to do is, just like what we did when we were lying the length of the roller, I want you to try to tuck your pelvis. That's where your pubic bone curls towards your nose. That's what I refer to as the sad dog pose. Notice that you should not be pushing into your feet, but you might feel tension on the front of your thighs. And then untuck your pelvis and try to get the back of the pelvis to feel like it lands right on top of the roller, not over the top. That's not an invitation for your ribs to come with you, right? So let's just try it 4 times. Tucking and tilting. Tucking and tilting. How are you feeling, Josh?
Good.
Tucking and tilting. Okay, so we're going to use our tuck first. So I want you to go ahead and tuck your pelvis and notice where that elongation is. And then keep your pelvis here. We're going to do it wrong to do it right. We're going to go ahead and extend our right leg out low and long, and we're going to stop here. Now, the second that we do this, it should almost encourage the pelvis to go back to the top of the roller. So now I want you to think tilt. Keep your left foot light on the floor, flex your foot on that right side, and nice and slow, I want you to bring your leg up, and I want you to stop before your leg gets perpendicular to the, before it gets perpendicular to the roller, or you feel like your knee wants to bend. And once you're here, just go ahead and flex and point your ankle a few times. And notice that tensional pull on the back of your calf. Can you feel it, Josh?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so now what we want to do is get that fascial pull all the way to the pelvis. So this is how you do 2-directional length. You flex your foot, and in equal timing, I want you to think about tilting your pelvis onto the top of the roller. So again, let's do it wrong. Tuck your pelvis, less of that tension, right? But then if you tilt your pelvis, think of your pubic bone moving between the legs as you flex your foot. You want to feel a pull all the way down the back of your leg. Really try to find that long tensional pull. Take a nice breath in and out, and then let that go. Set that leg down. You feel like you find that one, Josh?
Yeah.
All right, let's try it on the other side. So same thing. Right foot's going to stay light on the floor. Left leg's going to go low and long, right? So if I start down here, I really think about landing my pelvis to the top of the roller. I flex my foot, and I bring that leg up nice and slow. I want to stop before my leg gets perpendicular. I feel like I got to bend my knee. And again, equal timing. So think like a rubber band that you're pulling from your heel to your hip. So you're going to flex your foot, heel goes to the sky, and then really think about sinking the back of your pelvis nice and square right on top of that roller. And then when you inhale, you can ease back some of that tension. And then again, tilting, that's that happy bunny or Playboy bunny pose, like your tail's kind of getting a little more lifted in your jeans, and feel that tensional pull all the way back down the leg. Okay, so now bend that knee, and we're going to now tuck our pelvis. Pubic bone curls toward the nose. There's my sad dog. And now we're going to do a bent knee press. So plant your right foot to the floor and really think here, equal timing. You're energizing your right knee over your toes, as you're using your left thigh towards your chest to curl your pubic bone towards your nose. So opposition. So pelvis goes to the nose, knee goes over the toes. And you should feel a nice good tension to the back, to the front of the thigh. Yeah. And then let that go. Let's try it on the other side. We're going to go ahead and set that left foot down to the ground, ball of the big toe, outside of the foot and heel. You're going to grab onto your right leg. Same thing. Take a breath in. On an exhale, you're going to tuck your pelvis, draw your knee in towards your chest on that right side, but then energize your left knee over your toes. Really think about getting long in the front of the thigh. And all you're looking for is a nice fascial tug onto the front of your thigh. Just notice what you feel. And then bring both knees into your chest. And let's practice one more thing here. Put your hands in front of your thighs, lock out your elbows, keep your heels slack to your butt cheeks, and push your thighs away until your thighs look like they're perpendicular to your rollers. So just go ahead and push them away. Once you're there, press your thighs into your hands, everybody. Take a breath in. And on an exhale, tuck your pelvis again. And then keep your thighs pressing into your hands and try to tilt your pelvis. Let's do that 2 more times. Take a breath in, tie your core into it. Exhale and tuck. Keep your thighs pressing into your hands. Don't lose that. Take a sip of air. And then exhale and tilt. And one more time. Exhale and tuck. And then take a breath in and exhale and tilt. Okay, bring your knees into your chest. Roll that roller out from underneath your body. And let's see what changes we make on this. So this is a goal to hydrate a little bit of fluid flow back to the pelvis. Now, if we've decompressed our own low back, it's a unique feeling. You might feel like you generate heat, but ideally what you feel is that the low back curve almost feels more lifted, only the lift is closer to your pelvis, but now you're really noticing the mid-rib wall is a little more relaxed to the ground. You might even notice that the back of thigh mass is settled down. Josh, what do you got in your body?
Yeah, I feel the heat for sure. I feel like my thighs on that one.
And what about turning your head left and right? Here's an interesting indirect approach. Turn your head left and right. Notice if it's freed up any range or decreased any pain in your neck. Would you get up there, Josh?
Maybe a little bit of pain.
Okay, so let's see if we can now release your neck. Let's do one more treatment here. Nice quick one. Go ahead and sit yourself on up. And what we're going to do is instead of a neck release, we're going to hydrate our neck from a hand treatment. And then we'll go ahead and take some questions and see what you guys see. Okay, so let's go ahead and grab our large soft ball. Now listen, if you don't have a ball, don't worry. I'm going to do it on both hands, one with, one without. So if you have the ball, I want you to squeeze the ball in one hand, and I want you to notice the strength of your grip. If you don't have it, just go ahead and squeeze your hand, just make a fist. And then do it on the other side, same thing, squeeze the ball. Notice if you have a difference in the strength of your grip. Notice if one hand has a stronger grip, if one arm feels like you have more strain in the forearm, or if you notice that your knuckles feel tight to do the technique. Okay, now if you do have the ball, we're just going to do a quick mini hand treatment. You're going to place the ball in between the base of your hands like this, and you're going to curl your fingers over, and you're going to compress the ball. And once you have that ball compressed, keep the consistent pressure, and you're going to just try to glide the ball back and forth at the base of your hands, right? So I kind of really keep my fingers kind of squeezing together so that I can glide. Now, you guys who don't have a ball and you're not doing it how Josh is doing it, you could just take your hands like this and just go back and forth. So just notice that if you run your skin over skin, that's gliding, right? And if you have trouble for some reason doing it this way, you could always put your hand on the ground and do the gliding one hand at a time, okay? And gliding, same thing like what we did on the calf. You do it for about 30 to 60 seconds in one local area, which is the base of your hand right now. Second technique is called the shear. You're gonna go ahead and put the ball at your thumb pad. You're going to pin the ball here, and you're just going to make small circles. And you might notice that there's some tenderness. If you want, you can even kind of focus on one hand and then the other, right? So I'm going right over the edge of my thumb even. So this is a direct shear, pinning the skin and kind of creating a movement with very limited range. I could also pin the ball, and I could fold my thumbs back and forth. And that's an indirect shear, contracting the muscles against the compression of the ball. And then we're just going to pause and wait here for a second. And then the last technique is rinsing. And what's easier to do if you're on the ground is to maybe come up onto your hands and knees and go ahead and we're going to rinse down the hands. Now, as much as we're working on the hands, this is an indirect technique. For the neck, there is a neck release sequence. You guys could find that on YouTube. It's all over the place on Melt on Demand. An easy way to create hydration at the base of the skull to create a neck release. And just because I want to be mindful of my time and everyone else's, maybe we'll save that for the next session. And then let's go ahead and try it on the other side. Same thing, rinsing. So I'm going from the base of my fingers to the tip of my fingers. And notice how I'm also going up the palm of my top hand. I'm even going over my wrist repeatedly. So this is going to draw fluid flow from the extremities from your hands up to your neck. So oftentimes people will get a bit of a neck release just doing something like this. And then we could also do a little forearm rinsing. You could come onto your side and go up the forearm. And so if I had neck issues before I were to do a neck release sequence, it would definitely be near the end of my map, or I would split up some sessions and build myself up to a full neck decompress. I wouldn't just go right after a neck. If I had neck issues, I would see if I could resolve any of the neck issues from other areas of the body. And then I'm going to go ahead and flip over onto the other side. I'm going to do the same thing, rinsing up. And this is a nice treatment because you can use the balls anywhere. You could be at work doing this. You could just before you play a game of tennis or golf or anything like that. Great thing to hydrate the arms to decrease some of that torsion in the shoulders and neck through sports and activities. Okay, last technique is called friction. Very, very lightly, we're just going to go ahead and rub our hands with the ball. Just taking some nice breaths in and out. And this just stimulates the lymphatic flow. The fluid flow of fascia drives from fascia to lymph. So it's a nice way to also boost your immune system through this as well. Okay, so go ahead and grab that ball again and squeeze it again. And again, if you don't have the ball, just notice how you squeeze. And then try it on the other side and just notice if your grip feels any more balanced or you feel like you've got a better grip strength and less tension to the forearms. I definitely made a change on that. How do you feel now doing that one?
Much better. Any
difference? Yeah. I always feel like I've got a much better grip than when I started. So, one thing I can see, like in your studio, you're obviously lifting weights, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the things I want to point out for a lot of you guys is oftentimes those of us who train, we actually have neurological instability. It's not when we say weakness, we don't mean muscle weakness, right? You could be super, super strong, but the deep stabilizing components of the neck, the low back, the shoulders, the pelvis can get faulty. And the thing with athletics is that you don't know that it's happening, but what you start noticing is your neck or your low back or a shoulder or a knee or a hip start to ache. And that's where neurostrength, the sister component of the MELT method, comes into play. That's the strength components of it. So just hydrating fascia is going to help to reestablish stability on a fascial level, but then to get into the neurological level, we'd want you to do things like side lying arm fan, side lying backhand, and some of these very subtle body techniques to regain intrinsic strength where maybe this weight training and this amazing rack that you have behind you isn't helping you out as much as it could. That would be my thought. How do you feel after doing that session?
I definitely feel a lot of release. I actually, my neck, I had it traveling down. I would feel it in my fingers. It was definitely noticeable that I don't feel it there anymore.
Nice.
It is very interesting from the hand treatment. That actually seemed like it helped the most.
Yes, exactly. And that's just it, is when we have impingement, right? If we go after the neck, you keep getting chiropractic adjustments, it can actually cause ligament laxity. And that's not what you want. What we want to do is reestablish that ligamentous strength, right? That integrity, and then work to hydrate that tissue, try to get that sensory motor control so that you get those fine motor muscles back on track to stabilize. And that's what that hand treatment does. And there's all sorts of different techniques with the other balls, knuckle decompress and things like that, to notice some of the accumulative stress that's probably in your arms causing you the neck pain.
Yeah.
So that was awesome. So that was so much fun having somebody brand new in this. I'm going to open this up. If anybody has any questions, I don't know, Josh, do you have any questions? If anybody has any questions, I'm going to open this up to Nellie and let her field some questions for me. And drink water. Hello, watch me. Time to do it right now. Now, Lily, are there any questions from anybody here? I see some people are raising their hands. I see a question. Yeah, sorry.
There you go. No, go ahead.
I just saw somebody that says, what about one side of the shoulder pain? Like if you have one side, that's the thing about pain, right? Is if you've got one side that bothers you, you don't just go after that side more, because oftentimes people who have shoulder issues, when you do evaluations, their right hip is out of balance. So when you walk, the rotation isn't there. And now all of a sudden it's like, I'm feeling my shoulder, but I think I had hip issues. So if you have a hip problem, that could cause shoulder pain. So you would want to do melt just as a global self-care treatment to reestablish the control to your pelvis. That's an important one for you. Yeah. I see some people have their hands raised. I'm gonna go to Robin. I'm gonna get your question. Hang on a second. Hi, Robin.
Hey, Sue. Good to see you.
Thank you.
I have a couple questions. One, what's the name of your cat?
That's Baron and Lily. They're traveling around here.
Baron and Lily are just like the mascots of the melt, so that's super sweet.
Thank you.
Yeah. And thank you for your time today. I appreciate that. I'm not sure what my question is. I mean, I personally struggle with the sciatica. And you're right about like the direct before the indirect before the direct.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I just can't go in there and like boom and just like beat the shit out of that stuff.
That's right. When you have sciatica, guys, this is so common. Sciatica, piriformis syndrome, but sciatica is a really powerful one, mostly caused by low back pain or low back compression. So if I had sciatica, if you go to the Melt on Demand, there are sciatica maps, and you'd want to start with the upper body, work on the inner thigh, work on the calf, and then start to approach the pelvis. And you'd want to add the neurostrength pretty quickly into your protocol. I would go to Melt on Demand and look at all the ones for SI joint pain and piriformis syndrome. Great question.
And and the other, thank you. And the other thing is, like, I saw you in Orlando, and thank you for your time there too.
Thank you.
And you know, the one thing that stuck the most was like, if you're gonna cut, you close. Because I got the whole like shoulder, the fascia, but you cut, you close. The other thing, I forget what I was gonna ask, but I don't want to take everybody's time. But
well, let me go to another person. Think about what you're gonna ask.
Yeah,
and go
thank
ahead
you,
and post
thank you.
Okay,
thank you.
Awesome. Let's see if we have, let me see if I can search if anybody else has any questions. I don't know. Nolly, can you find people who are raising their hands?
Sure. I have actually a question for you. So I have here from Jennifer. She's like, I feel like I'm having an upper back and neck strain due to all the work since my hysterectomy a few years ago. I have troubles engaging and following or feeling my lower abs. So she just expressed that.
Yeah. So, anytime, for any of the females out here who have had hysterectomies, endometriosis, any type of pelvic floor issues, this is stuff people don't talk about, but the pelvic floor has a real suspensory protocol to it that relates to the cervical spine. So when you have those kind of surgeries, they are going to leave the neural core out of balance. So the rebalance sequence should be a daily event for you. The foot treatment, which we didn't do, but very similar to what we did with the hands, you would do the same thing. You would do your gliding down along the foot. You would do your shearing, and then you would do your rinsing. Very, very similar to what we did on the hands, to try to draw fluid flow back to the pelvis, which is really critical. And then once you get going with Melt, there's lower body compression sequences and really reestablishing pelvic floor integrity. There is an entire pelvic floor health collection on Melt on Demand, and I would go through that process of looking at all of those. It's pretty powerful. So that there, again, there's no one melt mount for this. You want to regain neurological strength, pelvic floor stability, and control. That's really important for hysterectomies.
Awesome, thank you. There's someone who raised their hand, Stephanie Ward. I'm gonna allow them to ask you their question.
Okay, hi Stephanie.
Hey, Sue, how are you?
Good.
Good. I actually just recently had shoulder surgery about 8 months ago, so I'm probably 80% recovered. It was rotator cuff, and I also have a lot of arthritis and labrum, and so it was a couple surgeries.
Okay.
I'm a very active person. We've actually met, but I also have been noticing, and it's interesting that you mentioned it, left hip pain. So it's right shoulder, left hip since the shoulder surgery. So
Okay, so Stephanie, listen, when you're going through surgeries and you had your arm cast, what happens when you walk around? You've lost rotation, right? All of life is there. As much as we're a sagittal plane mover, we walk forward, it's all a succession of spirals. And when you bind a shoulder, and biomechanically, your brain, with every left foot step, you're short stepping that left side. So you're literally, if we did an evaluation, your hips are going to be a little rotated back after a right shoulder surgery. We have a fascial continuum called a spiral line that wraps around the body and comes down through our torso. So when we have these imbalances and these instabilities, this is, again, it's going to cause problems later that doctors don't talk about. So we want to do things like rib side bending, hip side bending, the lower body stability sequence from the Melt Performance Collection, working on a move called mini bridge. You'll find it on Melt on Demand, getting the lower fibers of glutes active again, because when you have these surgeries, remember the shoulder girdle, they don't call it a girdle for nothing. It's a stabilizing component of the arms and legs, right? So as much, it's not really attached to the legs, you'd think, but the fascial continuum from one shoulder goes to the opposite hip like an X. So that big X in the body gets a little flimsy to the opposite leg. So you want to be hydrating and doing all the rehydrate techniques, but I would be looking at the neuro strength moves like mini bridge, lower fibers of glutes, reestablish those, clams, side leg lift. The lower body stability sequence is going to be a huge one after shoulder surgery. And that's the thing, guys, you know, when you get a shoulder surgery, you would think, oh, I need to rehab my shoulder, which is true. And you have to think about how things connect, right? So if all I do when somebody comes in with shoulder pain or neck pain is work on their neck or their shoulder, I think of the victims of the areas of your body as where you've had surgery or pain, right? If you have an area, if you had like a kid who was crying out for your help, you wouldn't punch him in the face. You would go try to figure out what the problem was. And so we need to investigate our bodies more and realize that most often the areas of pain, the perpetrators are well far away from it. And I would dare to say for you, Stephanie, that you probably had left hip instability. And over all of the years of wear and tear, you're using that right side so much, maybe your right side dominant also. And it's actually causing the instability. And now you're really feeling it. So to combat that lower body stability sequence, you've got to get the neuro strength into your practice. And same thing with Josh with his neck issues. Hydrating is going to stabilize the connective tissue and get the connective tissue to help reintegrate that neural timing. But then you really have to go after those stabilization mechanisms. And there is an upper body stability sequence, side lying arm fan, side lying backhand, to get those stabilizers to reactivate, because you know, when you have rotator cuff, those are the stabilizers. They're inhibited now to activate properly, right? So don't just do traditional PT, get yourself through your PT, but now start to gain some of the intrinsic strength back in. And that's what neuro strength is all about. But you'll recover from that if you follow that plan, is work on that lower body of yours, strengthen it. Yeah. Well, guys, look, we're at the end of our time. I'm even a little over. Is that bad that we've run over? I'm happy to answer more questions. One more.
One more. All right. I'm going to allow Linda Fireman to ask her question.
Hi, Linda.
Hi, Sue. Good to be here. I'm older. I'm 76, but I'm not like a normal 76-year-old. But my husband had a spinal cord injury 3.5 years ago. So I'm standing on terrazzo floors for, like 12 hours a day. And now I've got pain from the ankles up to my hips, not including my hips. I'm so tight. And that was great releasing, the lower leg. What can I do for the back of my thighs?
Okay. So
I mean, that's not all, but right now that's the most.
Yeah, I mean, like all of a sudden, it's interesting. I just moved to Florida, and like also all the floors are very cold, and these like whatever they are, like they're
hard.
Hard floors, right? They're not wood floors. So a couple of things, you do want to walk around if you can, like with soft shoes on. But if I all of a sudden was standing a lot and started feeling my low back, it's a ground reaction force. And the other thing is, with all true honesty, when you have someone that you love, a husband, a wife, who's gone through some sort of trauma, is having struggles, it uproots us a little bit. There's a lot of fear in there, like to lose your spouse, or, oh my gosh, like there's mortality starts to come up into the mind. So one of the things to really help you is doing the foot treatment, just like what I demonstrated. The foot treatment is a way to really establish ground reaction force, or ground force reaction, like the way that we meet the energy of the earth back to the body. And it'll help to both consciously set you into a more stable place, but it will also draw some fluid flow back up to the back. Any of you guys who have low back pain, the very first treatment that you should do is a foot treatment. I have a low back pain protocol. I'm a founding member of the Fascia Research Society. We've done research on this. Start working on your feet. And then there's a Melt on Demand. There is a treatment called the lower body compression sequence. It's one of the 7 fundamental sequences of Melt. You'd want to start there and then start building yourself up to doing like the seated compression sequence, or there's a really great one on the app called Melt for the Desk Sentence. And although it's for people who are sitting a lot, it's another one to draw the release back up to the pelvis to alleviate the tension in the low back. And the final thing for those of you who are standing up a lot is, remember, as we get older, it's just part of the process of this internal flexion. And again, if you're worried about your husband too, right, it creates some contracture around the heart. It's a protective response of our nervous system to bring us inward. So there's moves like rib length and extending your body over the roller, right? And opening up your chest and just trying to differentiate your ribs from your neck and your low back to really understand how to open up the heart center. And there are heart center opening maps. And then there's, of course, the treatment that we didn't do, like the neck release, doing these subtle body techniques against the roller on the base of the skull and doing a neck decompress. So remember, no one melt map for any one thing. But if I was feeling like all of a sudden I'm standing a lot and my back is starting to bother me, again, it's an instability. So start from your feet and work your way up the body all the way to the skull.
Thank you so much. I appreciate
Wonderful. It. Good luck. I hope your husband recovers really well too.
Well, unfortunately, he's not going to, but it's a coping, he's in complete quadriplegic, but yeah, total stress constantly.
I hear it in your voice. And I mean, that's really a lot of this though. And I want you guys to hear that, that was one of the eye openers for me, guys, when I was working on high performance athletes for years. And it was when 9/11 happened, I had the rude awakening of post-traumatic stress disorder. And what I can tell you is body pain is not just physical, it's emotional, mental, chemical, structural, right? So we need to give ourselves permission to go back into our body and sense what we feel, but to also give back to our bodies, because sometimes the messages our bodies are offering to us, we're not answering with the right protocol, right? Our neck hurts us and we want to jam a ball in our neck, right? It's like, oh, we're going to assault our body to make it change. But instead, if we just get quiet and we listen to those body messages, what it sounds to me like you need is some grounding. So that rebalance sequence is a gem, the lower body length for sure, but then ground your feet. You work on the foot treatment and you'll see it'll really help you cope with the grief of what is to come in loss, and make sure that you stay with communities that will help to support that. I know all about that. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Very helpful. Thanks.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to hand this back to to my team. I really appreciate you guys coming to a quick session today. Again, Melt on Demand, there are literally hundreds of melt maps that you can practice, all different types, so that you can learn just about the body's messages, about how to help yourself get out and stay out of persistent pain problems, lead a more active, healthy, pain-free life. I am also very active on Instagram, on YouTube, on Facebook. So, make sure that you like our pages. And if you have any other questions, go ahead and leave them in the chat box. And I'll do a Facebook Live or an Instagram Live in the next couple of days to answer some more of the questions that came through. But until I see you guys again, 3 quick tips. Sip water frequently. Okay, before and after you melt for sure. But if you sip water frequently, every 15 minutes, a little sip of water, you'd be better served sipping from a liter of water and making it last an hour, rather than drinking a liter of water and not drinking water for an hour. You're going to keep yourselves more hydrated with more consistent water intake. Make sure you're eating more water-filled foods. And if you would today for me, call somebody that you love, that you haven't talked to for a while, and put some positive energy out into the world, because I really do believe when we all do that and create that act of kindness, it elevates the energy for the whole universe. So I would appreciate you doing that. I'm wishing you guys all a very, very happy Thanksgiving. I hope that you enjoyed this session with us. You can find out more at meltmethod.com. I'm going to hand it back to Natalie if there's any closing remarks. Otherwise, happy melting.